Kung Jin, the last remaining Kombat Kid to never get a second appearance in a Mortal Kombat game, is getting a redesign today, so let's see what we got. Okay, so I got asked to do a redesign for Kung Jin. Being honest, I'm not the biggest fan of really archer characters in fighting games, much less Mortal Kombat, and there haven't really been much of them. Nightwolf is the only one that really comes to mind at the moment. But I honestly kinda like Kung Jin's design a lot in MKX. If I had one criticism, it was just the actual earth tones that they use, but I'm just not a fan of those in general, so that's just a nitpick on my part. But I felt like the actual design itself was pretty cool, even the alternate to it. The hooded thief look for Kung Jin I thought was really cool from story mode. And it still boggles my mind that of all the combat kids to bring back in Mortal Kombat 11, he and Takedo were the ones that were left out. I just don't get it. But it was rumored that Kung Jin may return for a third combat pack for MK1, though who knows if we'll even get that pack if the rumors are anything to listen to. But I mean, there are rumors that he'll be in a third combat pack, just like there are rumors that the game is dead and they're working on a new one, so we have no idea. But nonetheless, that's not going to stop me today from working on the cousin of Kung Lao and trying to see if I can give him a better redesign than the one that was actually present in Mortal Kombat 1 story mode. So, let's see what I get.
It has more sentimental than monetary value. Nevertheless, I would prefer you did not steal it.
It's a family heirloom, one that shouldn't have been given to you.
Alright, so starting off, I needed to do a base pose for Kung Jin, but I also wanted him holding the staff that he uses along with his bow and arrows. So I needed the actual picture or the image I was drawing on to be wide enough from the beginning for me to be able to get all this stuff in. It's a lot of detail I need to cram into one picture. So I drew a base for Kung Jin and the staff in the outset, and then I started working on the face. The sort of headpiece look that he had from MK11, from MKX, I wanted to bring back. I thought that was a really cool design element, and I feel like since everybody has a man bun in MK1 anyways, I could just add that to the actual headpiece to make him look different from MKX while still retaining a bit of the original design. I'm not a fan of the way his hair looks in MK1. Being honest, outside of the colors used, I'm not the biggest fan of his MK1 look, and he might be the only one. I felt like everybody else's redesigns are pretty cool, but I get it, they were going for something completely different for Kung Jin, I guess, for his design. My mindset is sort of a if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of approach, so I still wanted to retain a lot of Kung Jin's look, but just, I don't know, change a few things here and there and sort of update it to make it cooler. So I gave him like a dragon piece on his shoulder to sit over top of like his arm armor. He had that in his MKX look, but the actual shoulder piece was just a touch that I gave him to make it look different. I also had been playing with it in my mind quite a while and didn't know what design to use this on, but the idea of having a single, for lack of a better term, like sash or upper body piece to go across half his body and have the other half of it be exposed. It was a design that I thought about doing if I ever needed to do a Liu Kang redesign at some point, but I guess I've blown through that now. And I gave him that along with like a upper piece of chest armor. He has a lot of stuff protecting the left side of his body and not the right, by the way. Anyways, I gave him a 3-piece sash just because that was also kind of a small staple of his MKX designs. I'm not sure, but that may have been in both his regular design and the alternate. I could be wrong, or it might have been in his original design and the MK1 redesign. I'd actually have to go back and look, but I know I've seen it in multiple Kung Jin designs. And then adding like a shield of armor with numerous plates and straps on the right arm. So he has quite a bit of protection on his body outside of, like I said earlier, like the upper part of his right side. Why you would wear your clothes like that if you're going to be in a fight to the death like in Mortal Kombat, I have no idea, but at the same time, a lot of outfits don't necessarily make sense in Mortal Kombat. Sometimes they just look cool and they don't necessarily make the most practical sense. For his lower body, I got an idea looking back at a piece of MKX concept art for Kung Jin. I had to actually go in the crypt and look at some of this stuff. He had these weird, I almost want to say shin guards, but there were big old bulky pieces of armor around his legs, and the pants sort of seeped into him, and then his little feet just poked out the bottom of him. I don't know why. That was a hilarious design choice that looked kind of cool to me, so I did it again here as well. It still fits a lot. It's better than me giving him knee pads or some crazy boots like I normally would for a character design. So it was another small touch added to Kung Jin. And then adding the arrows in the back of him and working on the actual staff itself, which the staff I didn't go too crazy with. I just needed to edit it to not make it as bulky as I originally had it, but I didn't want to go too crazy with the staff to sort of take away from the rest of the design. I just needed to complement it more than anything else. And then adding the arrows in the back, and I was pretty much done with the sketching of the Kung Jin design, so it was a matter of going back and cleaning the lines up and doing the line art over top of it to have like nice crisp designs to be able to color from going forward. And then I was able to start coloring. Before I continue to the coloring phase of this design, just like to remind you, if you like this design and want to see more of the fighting game redesigns that I have on my channel, as well as a lot of the other content that I have up here, go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't. Be greatly appreciated. Now getting back to the actual coloring of this design. So after tapping in and getting all the line art done for Kung Jin, which the lines actually had to be a lot thinner than usual and sort of crisp just because of the size that I needed to do this design in, I started coloring Kung Jin. Now I know I said earlier that I didn't really like all the earth tones in his MKX design, and then I turned around and kind of went with that in this one as well. So I don't know, I guess earth tones just really fit Kung Jin. And as far as the White Lotus Society's like characters and fighters go, it's different from him in comparison to like Liu Kang or Kai or Kung Lao. But in any event, to sort of change it up, the yellow from his Mortal Kombat 1 design I used a lot more than the gold that was initially in his MKX one. So I sort of alternated between the yellows and gold for this design. I ended up changing my mind on different pieces as the design went on. It ended up coming out a lot better because I just had like stationary sort of one singular yellow color throughout the entire thing at first. It was way too much, so I had to tone that down over time. And then having sort of a greenish gray helped a lot to offset the browns and yellows in the design just because it's so bright with the yellow. But I settled on something I liked, considering it's a color scheme I'm not the biggest fan of, and I was able to go forward from there and started on the shadows after that point. Shadows for this design wasn't really that much of an issue. It's just that I gave Kung Jin a lot of intricate pieces, so I needed to make sure that the shadows were in the places that they needed to be in the pop here. Any sort of offset shadows or shadows in the wrong spot was really going to mess this design up. Also, doing the shadows made me realize that there were pieces on like the shoulder and whatnot that I sort of drew incorrectly and needed to go back and touch up. Particularly the one that's going over the shoulder that's connected to the casing holding his arrows in the back. I don't even understand how I wasn't paying attention enough to fix that the first time, but anyways, fixing the rest of the shadows and the design, coloring that up, getting the dragon armor on his left shoulder, and doing the details in on his face, sort of fixed up the shadows for this particular picture. Then it was on to the last portion of the design, which is doing the highlights and the specular highlights, which I initially didn't want to go too overboard with because I didn't want the entire thing just looking shiny as hell, but it sort of needed quite a bit of highlights to this design. The remaining detail would just have to be in the specular highlights. It's just the manner in which I ended up doing this design in, but the highlights did let Kung Jin sort of pop more. He looks like a slightly more seasoned Shaolin monk now without necessarily looking older, if that makes any sense. But once I finished with the highlights and started working on the specular highlights, he was done. And I had this brand new Kung Jin design for Mortal Kombat. Honestly, I don't think I did that bad here. I didn't really screw up the character or make him look outside of himself, or at least too far away from the design that was given to him in Mortal Kombat X. Like I said earlier, I wasn't the biggest fan of his MK1 redesign, so to be able to make a new one that's closer to the MKX one without looking exactly the same is something I'm kind of proud of here. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, how you feel about this Kung Jin design, and just Kung Jin in general as an archer character in Mortal Kombat. But in any event, I'm gonna get out of here. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and you all have a good one, and I'm out.